What gives someone the power to not just lead, but to completely change people from the inside out? I'm talking about a change so deep it can turn a criminal into a saint or a king into a servant. Well, today we're going to dive into the source material and explore the incredible influence of a 19th century spiritual leader, Bhagwan Swaminarayan. Okay, let's kick things off with this really powerful claim right from the scriptures. It basically says that no one, except for Purushottam Narayan, and that means the Supreme Being, could get hundreds of thousands of people to live with such incredible discipline. I mean, that's a huge claim, right? So you have to wonder, what did this influence actually look like? How did it work in the real world? So, to really get a sense of just how big of a deal this was, we gotta paint a picture of the world he was walking into. And let me tell you, it was not some peaceful, welcoming society just waiting for a spiritual awakening. Far from it. The reality in 19th century Gujarat was, well, it was pretty grim. Society was just overrun with crime, moral decay, all sorts of superstitions. You had robbers and dacoits basically terrorizing people. So the mission here wasn't just to bring back some law and order. It was way bigger than that. It was about planting deep spiritual values in a place that was, for all intents and purposes, a moral wasteland. There's this metaphor from the source material that just perfectly captures the challenge. It goes, "It is one thing to grow roses in the gardens of Kashmir, but it is another to bloom roses in the barren deserts of Kutch." Think about that. Trying to bring purity and beauty into a land that was just chaos. That was the real test. So, how did this incredible power actually show itself? Well, the best proof isn't in some abstract theory. It's in the real-life stories of people whose lives were just completely flipped upside down. And these stories are amazing. All right, our first case study, a guy named Joban Panji. Now, we're not talking about some petty thief here. The sources call him a notorious menace. He was so infamous that even the British authorities were like, yeah, this guy's a problem. For Joban, robbing people wasn't just a crime. It was his whole way of life. Seriously, by any measure, this was a man who seemed totally beyond saving. And get this, his transformation wasn't this slow, gradual thing. It happened in one single, unbelievable night. Joban decided he was going to test Swaminarayan's power by stealing his favorite horse. He tried once, he tried twice, 3 times. And every single time, he saw a vision of Swaminarayan standing right there by the horse. By the time the sun came up, his ego was just shattered. He completely broke down, fell at Swaminarayan's feet, confessed all his crimes, and right then and there, became a disciple. But you might be wondering, did it change like that actually stick? Oh, absolutely. Years later, this same guy, the former master thief, went without food or water for 3 whole days. Why? Because he'd forgotten his little prayer box, and he absolutely refused to break his vow of daily worship. I mean, that's not just a behavioral change. That's a transformation right down to his very soul. Okay, our next story is a little different. This is about a man named Surya Kachar. Now, he wasn't a criminal. He was actually the opposite, a ruler, a leader known for being super disciplined and having a strong moral code. So his story isn't about turning from bad to good. It's about what happens when that incredible discipline gets put to the ultimate test. So, a rival ruler, who was really skeptical of his integrity, decides to set this elaborate trap. He sends a woman to Surakachar's room late at night to try and seduce him. But his reaction? It was instant. He knew right away what was happening. He pulls out his sword, but not to hurt her. He holds it up and declares that to him, every woman other than his wife is like a mother or a sister. Then he just leaves, gets on his horse, and rides as fast as he can to Gahada, just to be near Swaminarayan. And here's the kicker. When he gets to Gadada, Swaminarayan greets him by saying, "Our Jati has arrived." Now, Jati is a word for a devout, celibate person. He knew exactly what had just happened, what Surya Kachar had faced in private, and he was praising him for it. It just goes to show this guy's integrity wasn't some act for an audience. It was who he truly was, deep down. Okay, those first 2 stories are pretty incredible, right? But this next one from the source material shows a level of faith, a level of complete surrender that is honestly hard to even wrap your head around. 18, that's it, just a number. But behind this number are 18 men. 18 incredibly powerful, incredibly wealthy men, who all got a letter that was about to test their devotion like nothing else. And listen, these weren't just some regular followers who had nothing to lose. We're talking about kings with crowns, powerful royal ministers, business tycoons, basically the 1% of their society, and every single one of them gets this letter. An unsigned letter, by the way. And the command inside was just staggering. It said, give up everything you have, right now, and become wandering ascetics. But here's where the story gets truly wild. The letter names some specific people, but at the end it just says, and others. So there's this young guy, Kalyan Das, and he's literally in the middle of his own wedding ceremony. He sees this letter, reads those two little words, and others, and decides, yep, that must mean me too. And without hesitating, he just gets up and walks away from his own wedding to become a renunciant. Can you even imagine?
And the end of this story is just mind-blowing. After all 18 of them proved they were willing to give it all up, only Kalyan Das was actually asked to stay an ascetic. The other 17, they were told to go back to their palaces, their businesses, their powerful lives. And they did it, joyfully. Their surrender wasn't about becoming poor or giving things up. It was about total obedience to the divine will, no matter what it was.
So those are some really powerful stories about individuals, right? But the sources make it clear that this influence wasn't just on a few people here and there. It had a huge impact on the whole of society. An impact so big, even outsiders could see it plain as day. And you don't have to just take the followers' word for it. Here's a quote from Bishop Heber, an English observer who was there at the time. He actually wrote that the villages that welcomed these teachings went from being among the worst to being among the best and most orderly. I mean, that's real, on-the-ground proof from an outsider that a massive change was happening. You know, if you wanted to boil down the kind of trust his followers had in him to just one sentence, it would probably be this phrase from the source material. If you say it is day, it is day. If you say it is night, then night it is. Just think about that for a second. That's a level of faith where his word becomes your reality. That's complete and total surrender.
And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? When you look at all these stories, a notorious dacoit who becomes a model of discipline, a ruler who walks away from temptation, powerful men who are ready to give up everything based on an unsigned letter, you just have to ask, what is it that inspires that kind of absolute surrender? What kind of power or love or divinity can trigger such a deep, life-altering transformation in a person?